Welcome aboard, welcome aboard. It is I again, TJ Taurai Jack from M5 Successful Friends. And if it is your first time listening to this podcast, where have you been? If you've been around, welcome aboard. It is good having you around. Like it is any other day, we bring out to you M5 Successful Friend, a friend that we have identified that is doing well, that is killing it in their own right. And today, it is no different. I am bringing you someone else that I've come to know in the network. We've been checking each other out from a distance on social media and things like that. And I reached out to him and said, dude, let's have this conversation. And this is it now. Today, you are going to find out who that person is. You can see him smiling through. And this is Andrew Tsuro. Andrew, welcome aboard. How are you doing?
Very good. Very happy to be here finally. Other side this time around. So I'm quite excited to see this unfold.
Good stuff. I'm going to do a short introduction of who you are and why you're in this seat, right? So Andrew wears a couple of hats, and I'm just going to mention this couple of hats. But one of the things that I have actually tried to see from an Andrew perspective is that he's a very humble guy, but over and above that, he travels throughout Southern Africa. I don't envy you anymore. I don't do that anymore. I used to do that when I used to work. He travels out throughout Southern Africa, and this is the one hat that he wears as the Toastmaster. So, Andrew, you're a DTM. What is a DTM?
It says, "Don't tie me." I'm kidding. It's a Distinguished Toastmaster Award. So it's generally the highest accolade, educational accolade you can get as a Toastmaster.
Okay, good stuff. So you achieved that, and I'm going to come back to it a little bit later. But that's one of the hats that you wear, right? And you currently serve as the chairman for Toastmaster Leadership Institution for Southern Africa, not South Africa, for Southern Africa. So you span across all the way to Congo and coming downward. The last time I checked my geography, that's where Southern Africa kind of like isn't Tanzania, Congo, and then you come down to South Africa.
This is a Toastmasters geography. It's just 9 countries in the Southern African region. We don't have Toastmasters in Congo yet. We're going to work towards that.
They're French based, right? So I think maybe having it in French would help, but good stuff. We'll learn about that as well. So that's the one hat that Andrew wears. The other hat that Andrew wears is that he is also the chief executive of the eHub, an entrepreneurs hub, where like-minded people of entrepreneurs come together. And over and above that, he is also the operations director at Team Factor. And he's also a branding consultant at Beacon Brands. But if you're working this hard, someone has to recognize that you're working this hard. And in 2018, Andrew actually was awarded the Leadership Excellence Award, which was recognized for 2018's top 10 global let me take that again. 2018's top 10 global young future leaders with the HR.com website. And dude, I think that was an exciting moment for you there when you won that accolade.
It's still a highlight to date. It's 2 years past, but it's still a highlight. So yeah, it was one of those accolades that I still hold close to my heart.
Okay, good stuff. So now that we know who you are, right, from an achievement perspective, and this is what you do, who is Andrew? Where are you from and what do you do?
Andrew is no different to any other human being out there. I love to describe myself as a pace setter, someone who's always on a mission to grow and make an impact out there. I am daring, bold, a driver in everything that I do. So it's in that space.
Okay, good. You Johannesburg based or where are you based?
I am currently based here in Centurion, Pretoria based.
Okay. Right, good stuff. Is that my alarm or your alarm?
It's my alarm. Can I pause for a minute to just get it off? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. So whilst Andrew is getting on his alarm there, and I'm sure someone else was trying to get hold of him. So the thing about I'm generally fascinated with people that do juggle, or should I say, many balls in the air. And Andrew, he is no different. He's an entrepreneur. You can see it. He is leading his own business, and also to be recognized by such kind of big companies, having accolades like this ones, it means something. So, Andrew, that you're back now, I think let's just go back into it and talk about you as a person, right? You're based in Pretoria, and life is good. So you're no different. By the time we were recording this podcast, we were in a lockdown in South Africa, and the announcements to just extend it had just kicked in. So you're also at home.
Yes, I am also stuck at home. That's how I would like to put it out.
So I was just on a break when we started off. I was saying to you, dude, I've never seen you like this before, because all of the pictures that I always see out of you with a nice hairstyle.
I always try and make sure, so I'm very much in my uncomfortable zone. But let's see, someone might consider this proper.
Okay, good stuff. Right, let's jump into it, Andrew. When did public speaking kick in? Because it looks like to me you are more into public speaking, you're more into leadership. But when did this kick in for you?
I think the earliest memory I have of my public speaking career or experiences fully kicked in was when I was 11. I was in primary school. So I'm originally from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe.
Right.
And I was in grade 5. Yes, I think. Yes, I was in grade 5.
Right.
And having been an extrovert for a while, I think it was something that was known in the school that if we want to give a task that is anything to do with talking and whatnot, I would be put out front. And not fully cognizant of what was happening, I got myself involved in a public speaking contest that eventually I found myself competing with the grade 6s, the grade 7s in the school, and representing the school on a regional level. And I thought that was something that really almost catapulted my journey in public speaking from then on. And whilst I wasn't the winner at that stage, I remember being announced in the top 5 of sort, which was almost like heaven for me, because it wasn't something that I anticipated. When I started the journey, I wasn't fully cognizant what I was getting myself into. I was just doing it for the fun of it. I've always had that notion to think, if someone has a mouth, a voice, a tongue, teeth, surely they should be able to speak. But I realize now that it's not as easy as just using your tongue, mouth, and teeth to communicate and speak. So that's when my journey started in public speaking. 2000, I can't remember, 2006, I think. Yes. I was actually 10, actually. Yeah, 2006.
So as a 10-year-old, I mean, if I look at myself when I was 10, I was just doing life. Pushing bricks, maybe that's what I was doing.
That's true. I did that.
Chasing a little bit of tires here and there, and getting my hands being poked with wires whilst we were trying to make cars. I had a very good friend who used to do that very well. He was slightly older than me. But there you are, you're being exposed to public speaking, and the journey, you're saying that it didn't resonate, or should I say it didn't mean a lot at that time. When did it resonate for you that this is something that actually it can be serious? I mean, for me, it sounds like this was an ignition, right? The lights went on at that time, but there was a journey to it. So you went on to high school. What did you study anyway?
So from then on, I think this is where it started. So on different occasions, ever since then, I would speak at youth groups or wherever from that age of 10. But still, it was one of those things that I was just doing naturally, and I just was recognized for it. And I studied. So I think another major part of it is I transferred schools just a term before. It's a big highlight, so I have to share this. I transferred schools a term before we announced prefects in primary school.
Okay.
And I was distraught because I had my eyes set on being the head prefect, and almost everyone in the school knew I had already been given the tips. I had started my responsibilities as head prefect, and dear dad comes and says, I think you need to get to a better school. Whatever the case was for him, I didn't want to agree with that. But even after transferring, I remember my mom saying to me that a star will always shine wherever it is placed. And if you are meant to shine, if you are the star who you think you are, or you should consider yourself as, you will still shine in that new school. And 2 weeks into the new school, I started representing in public speaking and debating. And I think that's where I started really appreciating the skill or the gift that I had, or the what I was blessed with at that point in time. So from then on, even working up to being one of the senior prefects in less than a term in a new school was a huge highlight, to then start realizing that some of these things are actually a privilege to have over a number of friends of mine who didn't have. Bear in mind that even after school, the tires that we would roll and use as cars, I still had the bricks, the mortar, and all the other clay stuff that we would play around with, I still did. But when it was school time, I've always been that competitive person. So it went into that. Getting into high school, I did, in Zim, we've got the Cambridge syllabus. I did the sciences, the pure sciences, your physics, chemistry, and biology. I did the commercials, as they are called, the economics, the accounting, and the mathematics side of things. I did a bit of some literature and English language and so forth. So I was almost there, but when I finished with my advanced level, I did it with math, economics, and accounting, because I thought that was, or those were my enjoyable conversations or subjects. Because I thought that was what I thoroughly enjoyed and I was good at. So that's what I then started. And still at that point in time, again, the public speaking, the speaking in public was just something that gave me the energy to drive with it.
So traditionally, if we look at people that study, a lot of people who are in the background, your background that you've just mentioned now, they're very introvert people. They are bookworms, and they are okay being alone, right? And if you look at all the things that come out on TV around people who are very sharp in their head, they like to just be themselves, right? And if we are to put them in front of people, it's just but there you are now, you've got that kind of background, right, from an educational perspective, but you're in public speaking, right?
Right.
When did you now then realize, or who realized for you, that, dude, this here is the future?
I think I'll be very blunt and say, I think receiving my advanced level results was a huge blow in my career. So from a position where, for my O level or ordinary level, as we have in Zim, where I was doing 10 subjects, sorry about that. For a position where I was doing 10 subjects and I had 6 A's, 4 B's.
Right.
To whom much is given, much is expected. So I went in there for my A level very confident, and the results were not as pleasing as my O levels.
Okay.
Now, there are many things that can be attributed to that. It could be because I eventually started getting myself into organizations and other initiatives like the Junior Council in the city. I got involved into the debates. I got involved into other programs like the Leo program, which is a voluntary program that I really fully immersed myself in.
Yeah.
I found joy. I found fulfillment in those initiatives over going to do a math equation. I found fulfillment in going and speaking and motivating and inspiring people as I thought I was doing,
Yeah.
over balancing a trial balance in accounting or doing ledger accounts. And I think that's when I received the results. It was a hard blow to receive, but it was also an opportunity to actually reflect and be like, yeah, you may be good in this, but what really lights up your face or what makes you really thrive is when you are around people, you're speaking, you're sharing, you're contributing. I think that's my bread and butter. And I think going from then and discovering Toastmasters was the best thing that could ever have happened at that point in time.
So I don't know what kind of a mother you had.
Do you want to go there?
But I just want to be as real as possible here, because you're talking as if, you know, your parents were kind of like okay for you to be walking on this new path that you have discovered to speak to people. And this is going to be a career. And yet you did very well 2 years before in your ordinary levels, and in your advanced levels now you've messed up for from what I'm hearing from you. And now you're trying to convince your parents that no, everything is okay, I'm going to be a public speaker. It's not a profession.
No, it's not.
How did that conversation go?
So, whilst they are not the most angelic and accepting of people in that space, I think it was a gradual conversation that we had. The one thing that I wasn't certain about is I didn't want to go back and go through the whole mathematical equations that were not going well, or trying to recourse. What I really knew at that point is I wanted to progress and move forward. And in progressing and moving forward, at that point, my thoughts was, let's study a bit of some marketing management with IMM after some consultation with a number of people. But now I had been already, or I'd in that space, in that period in time, I had already decided that I was going to get involved with Toastmasters. It would be some sort of my gap year. And in so doing, I know my dad got involved a lot more in that period, because then he had to drive me around in Toastmasters. He had to drive me around to the Toastmasters clubs and events. And it didn't take time in that period in Toastmasters for me to get recognized for some of the initiatives that I was coming up with or I was doing. And
I mean,
slowly and surely.
How old were you at this junction? I mean,
19.
All right. Okay.
Right.
So you were active already in the Toastmasters around
I
about
was
19, 18, 20.
19. Yeah, 19. I joined when I was just after my 19th birthday. I got involved with Toastmasters, and I started running the journey from there. And having said that, it's because I had the energy. I also at the time I was able to put in the hours. Someone might call it the 10,000 hours that I needed to put in, apparently, to make a success out of it. And it so happened, because of my previous experiences in leadership and public speaking, which is almost the foundation of what Toastmasters is, I was able to make a mark as quicker than many people. And considering, again, I was possibly the youngest in the whole region, it wasn't difficult to become unique. And in that very same vein, I also got a lot of people who were interested in knowing, who's this Andrew? What's happening with him? What is he doing? And how is he doing it? And with that, they would see me coming with my dad, and then they would start having a conversation with my dad, and so forth and so forth. Meanwhile, I know that there's something that I need to fix, but this is slightly taking over. And that's how eventually, when I woke up one day, I was fully immersed into this part of public speaking, training, and so forth.
Okay. So at 19, you jump into Toastmaster and you're now consumed with it, or the two of you are one. As you progressed forward to a point where now you become a DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster, I hear generally it takes one person maybe about a year to 2 years or even longer. Some don't even finish. For you, what does it mean to be a DTM?
So there's a stat that says 0.03% of Toastmasters reach that stage. I think the statistic has improved of late, but
Say that again?
There's a statistic that says globally 0.03% of all members across the world achieve that level of achievement in Toastmasters.
Wow.
With me, in this case, I think it was the most prominent accolade that I noticed and recognized when I started the journey.
Right.
And bear in mind that there was a few things I was dealing with in being inadequate as a result of my A-level experience. I wanted to prove myself that I was also able to get to that stage. And considering that we had that small percentage of people, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be part of that statistics of people. And that's how I drove towards it and worked consistently towards that experience. Now, when I eventually got it, it was an affirmation, it was a validation to say, there's nothing wrong with you as you might want to think. Right. In fact, you've got more to offer than what you think you should. So there's always phases, there's always courses around. And, you know, there's a saying that I coined at some point in time around that period to say, if your mirror does not reflect your true intrinsic value, get rid of it. It's useless, because at some point our mirrors are the ones that make us re-question and review what we may consider as something that is not good enough. So we then start by seeing ourselves as inadequate, not good enough. And yet, it's actually an opportunity for us to then grow and become better.
So you hit a nerve there for me. And men are not perceived to be in an area where they should see themselves as inadequate. And there you are, you know, you just telling us that you were in that space. How did you get out of that space? Or is this something that one can never get out of? Or something that one needs to work on consistently for you? You know, for me, the journey is slightly different. I always say that being inadequate, it's a beast that comes and goes for me, right? And I conquered that beast from sometimes because of the circumstance that I'm in. About to buy maybe a building that's maybe 10 stories and it's got 400 rooms in it. All of a sudden, the inadequacy kicks in, like, you know, TJ, this is too big for you. What if? But who's going to fund you? You know, you just started off, so the beast comes. So at some point, the beast comes up at any time. And it's not even about business at all. It could be just as I am at home and I'm talking to my wife and my wife says something else and I feel, oh, flip, I'm not being a good enough husband, Or maybe I failed to go through to something that I'm supposed to go through with my son. And again, I feel I'm not. So I see that coming from time and again in my personal journey. How have you managed that? Is it something that comes once off, or are you also in the same boat with me? How do you work around that?
So the first thing to acknowledge, and I think I've put in a lot of hours to try and understand this. I think the first thing to acknowledge is it is normal for us to have those feelings time and time again. In fact,
If you're a
I
man
think,
or woman.
be it you're a man or woman, be it you're young or old, I think it's normal. In fact, I would say it is recommended that you have that kind of approach, or you have those kind of feelings coming up ever so often. Why? Because they propel us. They simply are a signal that we are dreaming. There is something that we could aspire to become more of. And in my case, having gone through those every time, I've just noted, I think the challenge comes to become, how do I deal with it when that situation comes? Do
Right.
you know how you're dealing with the situation? I give an example when we talk of emotional intelligence, and I said, how will you know that I'm angry? It is when I react either by saying something to you or by fighting back physically or something, but it's when I show that I'm angry that you would know that I'm angry, right? The
Right.
same thing in this case. You know you're doubtful or you're feeling inadequate. We will only see, or the world will only see it when you show it. Similarly, in our case, when we succumb to that inadequacy for ourselves, when we come and agree with that thought and that feeling, that we then really become inadequate, insufficient, and low in our self-esteem. And for me, what I've then done, I've recognized the patterns. I've recognized the things that possibly may tend to make me feel inadequate, insecure, or insufficient in any case. And when I do that, I've also realized what happens when I agree, when I'm in agreement with that feeling.
Right.
I almost get to regress. Instead of, it doesn't motivate me, it
Okay.
dampens me down. So as a result, what I then try and always do is, the moment I feel like it, I acknowledge it, but I start working on getting out of the situation. It can be as simple as I feel inadequate, that I couldn't help someone, right? So now, to combat that feeling, I always try and go and find someone else who I am in a position to help, because the
Okay.
feeling is, I'm feeling helpless.
Yeah.
But now, if I go and help someone and that person appreciates it, at least that combats, it fights off. It's like a peel that now I use to just activate the feeling of being helpful. If
Right.
it's something to do with I'm feeling inadequate, or I'm feeling shortfall because I don't have this, I try and go back to a point, or find the things that I have and recognize them, so that I am able to work around it. And by so doing, at that point in time, if I'm able to then grow that feeling of, I'm actually quite helpful, I then elevate it to the next level, or challenge to me, say, how can I get to a point where I'm feeling helpful to this situation that currently I may not be helpful to? Oh, okay, it means I might need to put in a few hours, I need to work a little bit more, or I need to align myself with whoever to ensure that that happens. So it's the working process around that. That's how I work around it.
Okay, good stuff. So a lot of the people that follow our podcast, they are predominantly in the property space.
Mm-hmm.
And we have always positioned ourselves as, we want to tell stories of people that are doing great things in the property space, because it is an area where I think a lot of people don't realize that it is a door in heaven, where one can be, there's many doors in heaven, right, that can create financial freedom. But this one is my preferred one, which is the property.
Right.
And I want to tie it back to our conversations, which is that you play heavily in the public speaking. I've been invited to many events where I've had to go and speak. I've been invited to, or should I say not invited, I've had to forge myself to go and present. I've had to knock on so many doors so that those doors could open. And a lot of this actually comes through, or it's hinged around me as a person. You speak of emotional intelligence. And me as one of those people who then have the capability to stand in front of people and articulate my deal, my business very well.
Mm.
And I've always wanted to tie this in with public speaking, with Toastmastering. Is this, from your view, are these two separate things that live in separate worlds? I've realized that from time to time, I cannot actually separate that. It is a skill that I need to have. There's many books that I've read, and I keep on sharpening the sword around those areas of communication. And now that I've also have a business, the leadership kicks in as well. In your view, being in public speaking and taking the disciplines that you manage, how best can they help an entrepreneur in general? And I will zoom in to say the entrepreneur who is focused on property.
So to answer your very first question, they are not two different worlds. Every world has public speaking in it, but in a different form or in a different setting. So you just need to identify at what level or at what stage it is that you're including it, and how it is then becoming an impact.
Right.
Looking into the property world, you've got public speaking, you've got the interpersonal communication, you've got certain other skills that feed into the property world that relate or stem or emanate from public speaking. It could be negotiating, it could be influencing, it could be presenting a sale, or it could be presenting an opportunity. All those elements relate or emanate or are connected with public speaking. So it's one world. And it's the property world, and public speaking is a continent in that world, if I could put it that way, or it's the A in that world. It has to go around. It's a necessity. It's not optional. So I do believe, and I strongly believe, there is a strong correlation between great public speakers, great speakers, and their success in this world of property or any other business for that matter. There is a positive and clear correlation in that. Now, if I were to look into what are the elements that almost bring that relationship to become stronger, is our ability to realize that in whatever we want to achieve, public speaking or communication is the vehicle.
Right.
It is the vehicle that we use, or the vehicle that is driving people to one level or the next. I am very much of a fan in terms of leadership, and we lead everywhere. In our homes, in our communities, in our churches, or in our religious organizations, in the corporate world, there is leadership, including in entrepreneurship. And as such, it is the voice that we recognize. It is the words that come out of it that drive the leadership element to it. We talk of different presidents, and we recognize them by what they said. And I always am quoted saying that our leaders use their words to change and motivate. When we're campaigning, we campaign using our campaign speeches, and then they drive the activity that we do. When we talk of our leaders trying to move an audience or move a city, it's in what they say that then gets people thinking and to driving them towards action. So public speaking, communication skills, they are the vehicle to the success that we want to achieve. And if we're able to drive that vehicle right, then we're likely to drive towards the success that we're looking forward to.
Okay. That's what I've always thought, without the intelligence of people like you who have been journeying on this for a longer time. Because I see it from time to time, someone could come up with a very good deal, but they're not able to articulate themselves. You will ask a very simple question. So where is this deal? And someone just says, in Johannesburg. Johannesburg is so huge,
Yeah.
And there I am a potential investor wanting to invest in this deal, and you just say to me it's in Johannesburg, and you stop there. And I've also seen that people who are good storytellers, they would answer the same question in a different way. Right. So again, in the same question, they would say this deal is in Johannesburg, in a small area called Windsor. Windsor actually is surrounded by Northcliffe, which is an upmarket. It's banks that are now in that area. FNB is sitting there, the head office, and da. So they create this amazing thing that you like. Oh, I need to buy this.
Right.
And for me, that's the difference. So how do I then start to learn the storytelling, or should I say, being good in presenting? And if I look at Toastmastering, there's different programs or different levels where one can actually start embarking on. So I'm coming here to be a little bit practical, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that. I'm not an advocate of saying, hey, for you to be successful in property, you need to go and be a public speaker or Toastmaster. But what I've seen is that the two are intertwined. If you master the two, then your level of success, or should I say, you are having a shortcut to your success, right? What is the practical journey of a Toastmaster, or someone who would want to say, I don't have these skills, I want to learn them?
So I think I would use the word public speaking or communication skills are a catalyst to the challenges or to the journey of success, becoming successful in that property space. But like you said, why stories? I think the fundamental element is understanding. Earlier, I mentioned to you that I started public speaking at a very young age. When I joined Toastmasters, I went in, and my very first meeting was someone who was gray-haired. I think he was in his late 50s, and he was struggling to just articulate, to tell people for 4 minutes who he was. And when he finished, people applauded for him. They gave him a standing ovation. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening right here? Right? Yeah. And in that very same vein, I thought, when I joined then, my goal was, you know what? I'm going to show them how it's done. We don't just give standing ovation. Bear in mind, I was coming from a high school where if you were not good at public speaking or in any of those things, you wouldn't be featured in that space.
Throw tomatoes at you, maybe.
Yeah, no, in fact, you were not allowed to be in any of those areas. So at that point in time, when I joined, I wanted to show what public speaking is. Right. But along the way, I realized that what I thought was public speaking, which for me at that stage, and I don't know who resonates with it amongst the viewers or the listeners, I used to go to Google, get all the quotes that were sounding nice and good, and then I'll put one quote after the other. Right. Michael Jordan said, Barack Obama said, Donald Trump said, and I would put that, and it would be a collection of quotes, as I love to call it.
Yeah.
And in so doing, I realized, yeah, people were enjoying my energy, my voice, but the impact wasn't there.
Right.
And so for me, what Toastmasters allowed me to do was understand the impact of a story. Right. We are humans. And as humans, we are walking, talking emotions. So if I want to engage with you, I've got to realize that there is a gregarious effect. We affect one another.
Sure.
And in affecting one another, it means there is emotion involved. Our words are not just words, they are containers of emotion. All right. Which is why if you say to your wife, I like you, yeah, it might not land down very well, right? Because liking and loving, even though the dictionary may say they are synonyms, they are two different containers of emotion. They send two different containers of emotion. Yeah. And this is why storytelling has been the greatest tool people can use to connect with people.
Okay.
Your story will make me resonate with it. I will build rapport with you because of your story.
Nice.
Our experiences are the same. But
Yeah.
if you tell me about Donald Trump, I will not even give you the time of day, because Donald Trump right now is sitting in his White House. There's people serving you. But if I tell you that at a certain point in time, I had to go to bed hungry, you're likely to resonate with me because you too went through that similar experience.
Right.
It right here. You see me, you're like, if Andrew can do it, surely I could do it. Andrew grew up from the very same streets that I did. He used to use bricks as his cars. Says, surely I could do it. So that is why storytelling has a great impact, because it's now not more than just words. It's now containers of emotion that have been transferred. Because you're persuading, you've shared a certain emotion that either we are running away from, let's say we're walking or moving away from any pain, and we are walking towards pleasure. So that feeling of pain that you have gone through, you want me to move from it. And by getting to buy into your product or into your service, you're helping me see and attract or draw the pleasure that I want out of it. And that is what storytelling does. You inspire me because you've told me your story of your humble beginnings and to how you became successful. Your story, not someone else's. So that's how I think you would find that storytellers really have it under the game. So how do you build that? There are many ways. Toastmasters is not the only way, but it is a great place to start off should you have no interesting clue or time. I mean, not time, but should you have limitations. Toastmasters is a great way. What is it? It simply allows you the process to understand the art of communication.
Okay.
And it's not just by in reading about it, it's by in practicing. You my brother is always shared with me a quote to say, you don't learn how to swim by reading a book.
All
You've got
right.
to dive into the pool and practice the strokes.
Yeah.
Similarly, you don't learn public speaking by reading a book. You've got to stand in front of an audience, maybe two, maybe three in your family,
Yeah.
and feel the anxiety that you develop.
Right.
And then you speak for 10 seconds, and yet you said you were going to speak for a minute. And then you say, all right, I've felt this, I didn't die. Let me try it again. And when you try it again, you speak for 15 seconds. And because now it's like the muscle that you're building, like when you're going to gym, you start building that muscle. When we're reading a book, we are just seeing that, okay, the technique to carry the weight is like this. But when you now have the weight in your hands, it's something else. That's why they say experience is the best teacher, because that experience of exposing yourself to audiences and starts the journey of speaking publicly. In Toastmasters, the extra layer that's there is it's the safe environment. Everyone is in the same boat. It's almost like an AA for alcoholics. They're in the same boat, so no one will judge the other. The reason why it's not as safe out there is you meet an Andrew, and an Andrew who is snobbish or ignorant says, how dare you come and waste my time like this? So that's why a lot of us then don't embark on that journey. But if you go into a safe space, if you consider your family a safe space, go for it. Start there. Start by finding that safe space where you can practice and get yourself out of that, whatever you call it. I don't even call it a comfort zone, that cocoon that you are in, and start experiencing the world as it is to then free yourself.
Andrew, my man. This is amazing. You're hitting home, man. You're hitting home. I think it's profound that you're saying that you starting off doesn't necessarily mean for you to go to a Toastmaster. It can just start off being at home, and it's amazing that actually, for some of us, we actually live in these homes, but we do not know the opportunities that are there for us to practice some of these things.
Right.
So it's amazing. It's amazing. If you've got 3-4 kids already, you've got an audience of 5.
You've got an audience. So you've got an audience, and this is where you're able to take a notch and take it further. I even say, even if it's just one person,
Right.
you notice, and these are some of the triggers. And I think I learned something relating to the levels of consciousness. So there's a level where you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
Right? Similarly, if you are in a space of people who don't know what they don't know, we will not even bother ourselves. But if you know that you've got a certain shortfall or you've got certain shortfalls, there's an opportunity for you to then grow from it, do something about it, and make it work. In this case, you find yourself, you know that, all right, I've got a fear of standing in front of an audience. Start by engaging with your family, or your wife, or your husband, or your children, or your brother, or your uncle, whoever you feel it is to be vulnerable to, and start working towards it. And for communication or public speaking, it's when, if you find yourself saying what I was trying to say was, or what I meant to say is, or what I'm trying to say, or I'm trying, already know that that's a trigger, that you want to be clear, you want to improve your clarity in speech. So how do you do that? Okay, think before you say something. How do you think before you say something? You ask yourself, what outcome do I want out of this conversation?
Right.
Then you take it forward. So there's many techniques. We can spend the whole day. It's a topic of my, I just get addicted when I speak to around this, but it's really your ability to start something, and you run your race. Don't sprint if you are running a marathon. Someone is running a marathon, someone is running a 100-meter race, they just want to get to the finish line, the
I think
100 meters.
that's one of our biggest challenges, Andrew. I see you as a DTM now. I have no clue that you've been at it since when you're 19. But now I am now wanting to be like you in 2 months' time, right? And I don't know the difficult conversations that you had with your mom. I don't know the difficult conversation you had with the results that you're not happy with when you had your advanced level versus your expectations. I don't know all of these things. So the story that supports you is far greater than just me now trying to come in and like, that guy speaks very well, I want to be like him. Not knowing that there's a whole street avenue.
Very true. And I think one big thing, and especially for entrepreneurs that I've come to learn over the years, that we, as people who look from afar, we don't learn something. And I think we should be learning something. And the first learning thing that we should be taking and learning from is that everyone who you consider successful, it's because they've fallen so hard at some point that they had to be launched back up.
All right.
Right. So whatever case, you might not know the story, but the truth is there's a point in time where they fail and felt flat to the ground.
Yeah.
And that they realize, you know what, now I have to launch myself up. You know, our greatest strength, there's the saying that says our greatest strength lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Right? Okay. So you build your resilience because you've fallen before. So you now know that I'm not scared to fall again because I've fallen before. So this is the time that I continue growing. And that's one thing that we need to realize. And then secondly, it is that entrepreneurs fail forward. And in failing forward, we simply say, when you fall, you become better off than the previous person that you were. You have to, for you to get past it, for you to pass all the hurdles, you have to go through them.
Right.
You can't get past something that you didn't go through. So when I was growing up as a young child, there was this chicken pox.
Right.
I remember my friends, and I think even my mom and aunts would say, if you don't have it as a child, you will still have it at a later stage. And at the later stage, it becomes much more painful, right? And similarly, the same case I think in my experiences, I've learned that the earlier I fail, the earlier I make mistakes, the quicker I'm aimed to resolve it. But we are so fearful of making mistakes. We are so perfect that we don't want to make our mistakes there. We don't want to tell those stories. And I encourage that we start telling our stories of what went wrong and how we became what we were, or what we are, what you consider to be. And this is where the little you have share it, because it might be everything the next person can have. Your little might be everything the next person can have. And that's the learning that I think is essential for us to learn about entrepreneurs or any successful people out there.
Andrew, you're passionate about entrepreneurs. Is this the reason why you started off eHub?
Precisely so.
What is
Initially,
eHub?
eHub is an entrepreneur's hub where the real aim or the result of everything that we do is we want to see the African continent becoming more prosperous and prominent in what it is or what it should be. And
Okay.
this is by ensuring that the person on the ground, the African child, the African person here is living possibly a happy life. Now, why is it not happening right now? It's because there's high levels of unemployment.
Right.
And as from my studies, as from the experience, high levels of unemployment open a can of worms. Social ills, abuse, and we talk of drug abuse, gender-based violence, all sorts of things, but also poverty. And it also opened another can of worms. So if we have more entrepreneurs that are doing well, we are likely to have more people that are employed, that are earning, that are able to provide for their families, which will get rid of any theft, or that are then able to support their families, which will get rid of many other social ills. And we don't have time to think about how to numb ourselves of certain feelings because we are fulfilled already, or there's an occupation. And this is where I love the word occupation for job titles. You've got an occupation. But
Right.
if you don't have an occupation, you're likely to succumb to drug abuse or other ills that have affected the African continent. And the eHub is there to promote entrepreneurs, cementing reliable relations so that we can grow and make this African continent prosperous and prominent as we want it to be.
Good stuff. Andrew, it's been great having you. You know, in my books, you're a legend. You work with different. You wear multiple hats. I've always been intrigued with people that wear multiple hats at the same time. But I also gather the fact that you're a young guy and you don't have the. You're not fortunate and unfortunate like me. I'm married, so I've got a family to lead.
Are you fortunate or unfortunate?
Sometimes it's in a space of unfortunate, and sometimes it's fortunate. You know, it just depends on how you're looking at it. But you know, I am totally in love with my wife and my two kids, and I don't think that if I didn't have them, I'll be doing what I'm doing. I think maybe I'll just be an employee somewhere, and life would have just continued. But I think that there's a bigger picture now for me, which is, you know, creating legacy and creating some more free time with them, whilst I'm also, you know, just pushing ahead and carrying others along the way. But that's my mission. How do you balance all of these things that we spoke about? You are a CE in one area, you push Toastmaster in one area. There's only one Andrew. There's only one 24 hours in a day. I want us to close off with that. How do you balance that?
Truth is, or my truth is, there is no balance. I think that's my truth. There is no balance. However, there are times where I'm tired of Toastmastering, or there's only so much Toastmastering I can do.
Okay.
I go to the eHub. There's times where the eHub has finished its time, I go to Team Factor. Where there's time where Team Factor has its time, I go to the Beacon Brains. Right. I think one of the things is, on this earth, we're there to make an impact and find ourselves as we go along. And even if it's just one person that I help per year in their branding, even if it's one person that we help with their team, managing and running with their team, that's something. Even if it's one entrepreneur, the fact that I was able to do something, or you're able to do something and achieve something, that I think should be our worry. I sometimes feel that we get overwhelmed by the titles and forget the impact of the roles that we take. Not necessarily the title. The titles can be anything. Anyone can call themselves anything. It's the impact that you make. And I think there's only one Andrew to make the impact to leave someone else better off than they were before. And that's the one title that you can contain me with. As long as you're better off than I found you, I've done my part. Whether you put it now under eHub, or you put it under Beacon Brands or Team Factor or Toastmasters for that matter, the point is, in those 24 hours, I just have to leave as many people as possible better than I found them.
My man, well done. I cannot say much. You have killed it. I am glad that I decided to spend my Easter Monday with you. This is the time of the recording of this, and we just had to find time in our diaries. And I'm glad that we took this opportunity to just spend this last hour, talking about this. And I'm hoping that from an M5 Successful Friends, guys, you have had it all. I do mention that from time to time. We actually, not from time to time, all the time, we invite people that are killing it in their own space. This is the reason why I invited Andrew. Andrew, thanks a lot. For people that are wanting to hang out with Andrew, Andrew's got a website, andrewtsuro.com. I am going to share all of these in the notes as well, so you can get a hold of him. He wears many hats. I don't know which hat you've been fascinated with for you to wanting to hang out with Andrew. But it's been great. Andrew, we are going to be co-hosting a conference together. And I'm not so sure when we are going to, when this particular podcast is going to go out. But I'm excited. I'm excited about that, to share your stories, to share some of these nuggets that you have given us. You are going to have about an hour, 30 minutes. I'm wondering whether you're going to be doing that talk of yours of quoting so many people, or you're going to share your story from you.
I've become better after 5 years of Toastmastering. I've become better. So maybe you will not find a lot of quoting. You can find the quotes on Google. I'll be sharing my story and your experience.
100%. Andrew, it's been great having you around. Thanks a lot. And for those that have been listening to this, all I can say is that if you're on your personal journey of growing, I hope this has been beneficiary to you. And if you're wanting to hang out with people like Andrew, reach out to him personally on his website. It's been great. God bless. Goodbye. Cheers.